So welcome back. It's been a minute since we last spoke, but
Little, uh,
that's neither here nor there. I'm hoping you had enough time to play around with Claude UI. I'm hoping you were able to at least get the benefit of just the UI and getting used to and accustomed to using it in your everyday life or even in your everyday work life. Let's talk through it. Like, what have you done since?
I mean, I've worked on a couple of the things. I mean, I've been kind of using it regularly. As I last stated in our last episode, I've finished a particular task, uh, kind of like re-adding specific users or groups to not allow. It ran to that. It took almost, I want to say 5 days to 7 days to complete, but that is done. There are a couple of other tweaks that I am actually going to be running through this weekend. Now I'm tasking to remove the everyone group from their volume. It's one of those things that as I told my team, it needs to be tested. God forbid,
Right,
because
right.
you're messing around with that sort of thing, and anything could go wrong. So, it's kind of using that tool to help me try to figure out the best way to efficiently do it without causing any major issues. Apart from that, notably, you know, I had some other kind of tasks or requests, like um, when I was having an issue with regards to F5, um, you know, using that to help me address quickly without having to go to open up a support ticket, pointed me in the right direction of what I needed to do to accomplish and fix the task fairly quickly, which is very helpful.
Right.
Apart from that, let me see what else it was.
What about your personal life? I'm just good. So okay, you see, get up for
I've
work.
Yeah,
Personal life, done anything yet?
been wanting to do more stuff in my personal. It just seems like, with all the things that are going on with work, it's
It
been
just
focused on that. And
that's fair.
yeah, I do want to do a
Yeah.
lot more personal.
The only reason I ask is because you actually brought up something that I have yet to try out. So I was wondering if you did it. Yeah.
There is a thing. So the other day, my wife is about to join her new start her new job. She actually started this week, but during this process, she's been asked for a lot of things.
Right.
In particularly the marketing group, because it's a healthcare firm, so they've got, like, they want to market the individuals that are their providers or healthcare workers. So they ask them with these specific questions. This was the perfect time because she was having she had laid out what she was going to write, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me for my opinion. I said, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity to take what you've written, right? Let's see if we can ask or ask Claude, because her concern was like, can you review this and see if I'm not, being redundant, right?
Yep.
So took took all her talking points, put it in Claude, had a review, saw the redundant items, removed it, boom, good to go.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
she went in there, she, kind of like made the changes, some, additional changes to make it
Mm-hmm.
sound like more
Yeah.
like her.
Absolutely.
And then yeah, off to the races. Done deal.
And that's good. And this is what I want to hone in on because everything that at least I've seen, and maybe you've seen because we live in this technical world, has been focused primarily on how to use Claude to do this for your work, how to use Claude to make money, and things like that. But
Yeah.
that, from my perspective, just an outsider looking in, and even talking to my own family, they're like, it's not for me. Like, I don't know what I'm going to use it for, right? But that use case right there is
Mhm.
probably the prime example why most folks should start using Claude or any LLM in their everyday use. And the reason why I asked you if you use it in your personal use, because what I was going to say was you actually brought up a good question to me when we first had our first episode, in where you said, when I said, hey, you can train Claude on your style and your tone and things like that, it's like, well, can you talk to it? I was like, yeah, you can talk to it, but I've actually never thought about training it via voice.
Right.
Right. So I was curious to see if you had done that, because that's something that's on my backlog, to actually see if we can actually do
Oh,
that.
I do. That's yeah. I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I asked.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to incorporate my voice, and
Yeah.
kind of use my voice as the a query. It's easier
Right.
for
Right.
me to get my thoughts out as opposed to I'm typing. You know what I mean? So
No, and I get that, and I've seen countless videos from different facets of folks, right? From marketing folks, from technical folks, and some of the folks that leverage it for their marketing campaigns or just social media engagements or influence or whatever you want to call them. I've noticed that they actually talk to the model, right? They use the voice feature,
yeah,
whereas more technical folks are just typing away because we've been typing for better part of our career. So I get that, and I think it's a good contrast, because what I want to show is that whatever style of work that you're accustomed to doing, you can leverage an LLM to augment that. And that's the purpose of these episodes, right? Is
right,
really to augment that. And then today, what I want to get into is Claude Code. Now, a lot of people, and I had this conversation this morning with one of my direct reports. He's an older gentleman. He's kind of gone through it within the company. He's been there 12 years, started off in operations, was kind of a delivery manager, really moved away from the technical things over the course of his time here. And he jumped back. He was not jumped back. He was he was given to me because there was some restructuring, and they didn't like the direction things were going, so they gave it to me. And I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just kind of the course of how things work. And he was like, I asked him, I was like, look, a lot of the things that you're doing are very surface level. There's no depth to it. How are you doing things? Like, what are you delivering? Right? And I asked him, I was like, have you, you're in our cloud engineering meetings. You see what we're doing with Claude, because everybody's using Claude Code. And he's like, well, I don't think Claude Code's for me. I just kind of took a step back. I'm like, why? He's like, well, I don't develop any code. I'm on Active Directory side and things like that. I was like, don't let the word code scare you,
right,
right? It's just a product name, right? For something that aligns with, yes, it aligns with developers, and I'll get into the reason why, but it's not to say that you can't use it. It's just another interface for Claude, for accessing the model, right? So Claude AI, the web UI, right? You're having a conversation with Claude in a browser. Claude reads what you type in response, doesn't touch your file system, can't run any commands for you, and it can't take any actions outside of it. That's what you and I have been working on these past 3 episodes.
right.
Claude Code, think of it as an agent running on your local machine. It can read the files, it can write the files, it can run scripts that you already have, it can interact with your terminal, it could open up a browser session for you, right? It can do so much more. It's now remember we talked about consultant. It's now your hands-on consultant,
Right.
right? So think of the UI as your strategic advisor, which is how I first started using it. I had ideas. I wanted to build a new business. I wanted to build a new brand as part of that business. I wanted to expand corporate hardcore. I used the UI as that strategic advisor,
Mhm.
right? Because then I can go back and forth on my mobile device and things like that. And then I was like, I don't know how I could use Claude Code. And I was like, oh, it can help me with my GitHub projects. It can actually do the website for me, right? So Claude Code is your execution arm of your company.
Right.
Right? And what I mean, your company is the CEO of yourself. right? Even though you currently work in an organization, you still, and we've talked about this in the past, right? You're the CEO of you. You have to present yourself as somebody that adds value to the company. So don't look at code as, oh, it's just for developers. It's not. Code can actually write documents for you. It can look at documents, and we can talk through that as we go along. But code is, you're running your agent on a local machine, it's reading the files, and you can do multiple things within it on your behalf. You're delegating your work now at this point. So you have your strategic advisor, Claude AI, web, whatever, and then you have your team, your team of executors, which is going to be Claude Code. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you think of Claude AI, right, your strategic advisor, you pick up the phone, you talk to somebody, you talk to a vendor, whatever. That's the web. Claude Code is a guy that's sitting right next to you. You hired somebody, right? You know some of the consultants at your organization, right? You say, hey, do this, hey, do this, hey, do this. That's what Claude Code is going to be for you. And then the last component of that is Claude Desktop, right? It's the desktop version that, excuse me, not Claude Desktop, Claude Workspace, Cowork, sorry, Claude Cowork, that is everything that we just talked about, right? Bundled into an app on your desktop that can now take advantage of projects, right? The difference with Claude Code is it doesn't know anything about the projects that you created on the web, which is a problem, right? At least for me, it was. Cowork combines best of both worlds, allows you to look at the projects, and can also execute things on your behalf on your local machine.
All right, so it creates that bridge in between.
It creates the bridge in between, and there's also a dispatcher that from your phone, your mobile device, or remote session, you can actually initiate tasks using dispatcher to your running session on your local machine, wherever it may be. Mm-hmm. Connected to the internet. Let's be clear, connected to the internet.
Yeah.
All right. So Cowork's that last component. We'll get there, right? But let's focus on Claude Code because I think it will add additional value for you, right? To help with some of the additional work execution that you're looking to do, right? Not only develop the script, but execute the script. Obviously, first in a non-prod environment to really fine tune it, but eventually in your production environment. That's what we do in our work today, right? So that's what we're going to go through today. We're going to cover things like documentation, SOP creation, looking at PowerShell scripts, just Java, Python scripts and things like that, log analysis, directory and file management tasks that we were talking about with you, generating runbooks from infrastructure, right? Things like that.
Cool.
Now, this is not going to be a demonstration of how we actually install it. Okay, installation's fairly straightforward. If you go to let me spin up a session here. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share this new tab, right? And if we go to, I think it's the Claude.com. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, so Claude Code Desktop is Claude Code Desktop, right? But Claude Code, right? So we're going to do Claude Code. Claude Code, you go Claude Code downloads, it'll bring you to this page. You just download the install, you just download it, right? Like you just run this from a terminal and things like that. And people are like, what do you do? Right? I'm going to download it from the terminal, things like that. So this, I'm not going to go through this because I've already installed it. I've already configured it. I think it says there's other YouTube videos that you can watch that'll do that. That's not what this is about. This is for me kind of digging deeper for you to get a better understanding of what Claude Code could do for you. All right. So we're not going to get into the installation. You and I can go through that separately if you get stuck with something. But right now we're not going to do that. What I am going to show you is go into a little bit more detail of what you do after you get it set up, because there's another thing that I've been playing around with that I think will add even more value. So the reason why I'm talking about this other thing, in addition to Claude Code, is because the biggest challenges that we face with working with these different plans is token usage, right? And we talked about the different models between Haiku, between Sonnet, and Opus. Opus being that one that's going to consume a lot of tokens, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to blow through your weekly usage very, very quickly if you're not cognizant of how your token usage is consumed or output, right? So what I was working with, and one of my team members actually told me about it, is a product called Obsidian. And Obsidian is your vault to store a lot of your context, because that's how Claude works, right? It works based on context.
Yeah.
And by building this context for Claude Code doesn't have to always go back to the conversation, right? Consuming those tokens, right?
Mm-hmm.
It now has a reference point where it could pick up at any given point in time. And thereby it decreases the amount of tokens it has to consume to reanalyze whatever you guys were working on, right? So for long running conversations, the challenge was that long running conversations would eat up more tokens because it had to always refer back to something. And you would see some influencers say, well, start a new chat. Well, the problem with starting a new chat is you lose a lot of that context.
Yeah.
And there are some ways of dealing with that. You can say, all right, output this, but you're still using those tokens, right? You're using your usage. So that's why when I hear a lot of people blowing through their usage, even in Sonnet, it's because they're doing these things that are inefficient for Claude, right? Because it's just kind of going back and you're kind of repeating yourself, right? In Claude and using up those tokens. So Obsidian creates effectively this mind map for you to be able to reference, so it doesn't have to use that token, and you have a little bit more efficiency. You can have it always read it at startup, and then even when you finish like a conversation, you could what I've done is I created a skill, and I'll get into what the skills are in a second, but I created a skill called end session where it'll dump the context of what we just worked on into the relevant folder structure. So I'll show you how I set up Obsidian,
Mm-hmm.
and how I actually sync the Obsidian data information from my desktop to my laptop.
Cool.
Right. So that way I have that same context back and forth, because obviously, just like you, I still have a full-time job, right? But I'm doing my corporate hardcore. I'm working on my travel business at the same time. And I need to maintain that context between the two. So Claude Code plus Obsidian is going to be your tool belt for when you're working with Claude. So when you do the installation on your machine, right? I'm not going to have you do it. Excuse me. I'm not going to have you do it because anytime we do your corporate environment, I have to mask things out, and it gets a little bit too tedious. I don't want to do that, and honestly, I don't want to get you in trouble, right? When you're doing things in a production environment. So we're going to use my home environment, and I'll walk you through some of the things that were set up. Cool. So there's two ways. So after you install Claude Code, either on your Mac, you can use Homebrew, right? And if you don't have Homebrew on your Mac, use whatever package manager you have on your Mac to install Claude.
Yeah,
you pull it down through the terminal, and you can install it there. So there's two ways of using Claude, launching Claude. You can do it through your terminal, or you can use it integrated with VS Code. Now, if you're not using VS Code, I understand, right? Because that's not the world you live in. But I would recommend that you install VS Code and you learn VS Code, because it's going to allow you to more efficiently work with the files that you have created within Claude Code. Mm-hmm. Most of the files that you're going to be working with in Claude Code are going to be all markdown files. All right. And the reason we use markdown files is because it's more efficient from a token consumption perspective. You may have seen some videos or articles or whatever in saying, when you give Claude a PDF or any LLM a PDF, and let's say you give it a 20-page PDF, it consumes a lot more token tokens to actually read that PDF and analyze it. With Markdown, because it's just a text file, it uses a lot less tokens to churn through that. So you can give it a 100-page Markdown file, right, or 10,000 lines of a document in a Markdown file, and it'll read it more efficiently and use less tokens, right? So as we go through this, every time I talk about token consumption and where we can have more efficiencies around that, I'm going to hone in on that, because not only for your personal use, right, if you're on the $20 a month plan, you don't want to blow through your usage that quickly. You want to be able to actually do things, and this is why when people tell me like, oh, they blew through their usage, and I'm like, are you using Opus? I'm like, no, through Sonnet. I'm like, well, you're not using it efficiently, right? And I think we talked about that last time. And as you work through this, your questions will be, your instructions, I should say, will be more elegant. You won't ask it just simple questions. You'll actually get a little bit more involved, and you'll be able to tell it, oh, update this instruction set, right, with this, and update this skill and things like that. Right. So as you install Claude Code, you have some prerequisites, right? There's Node.js as a prerequisite. NPM is a requirement for there, and you need a pro subscription. So you gotta suck it up and pay for that $20 a month, right? Yeah. It's not available in the free one, right? It's only available starting in the pro. Okay. So what I want to show you is the difference between terminal and VS Code. So let's get into it. Let me share my terminal. Boom. Sure.
Yep.
So here's my terminal. You always want a reference place for Claude to start in, a place where you're going to allow it to trust to access any files, make changes, write changes to that directory, right? Yeah. Here I have on my F drive a projects and a GitHub projects. That's where Claude for me lives. And if I just do a listing, right, here's all the projects that I have in here. And then you'll see here's the Obsidian Vault. Let me visually show you what Obsidian Vault provides. So if I go into projects and then I go to GitHub projects, oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. Let me open up the Obsidian Vault. So let me share that part out. All right. So you'll see that in my Obsidian Vault visually, right, I'll have my context MD file, Markdown file, and my README Markdown file. But within there, I also have different folders, but we call that projects. So remember in the UI, we had the projects?
Yeah. Yep.
This is my representation within Claude Code of those projects for Obsidian.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about how I separate things out, I have my different projects, between my different companies, my corporate hardcore, my tech lead shift, and the ITXP, and then I have a wiki. Right? The wiki could be used for, I'm working on something and I want to write a wiki or a document or anything like that, stored in here. Update the wiki. If I look at that, I actually did this file was something that I was working with Claude Code on for my local server at home. Okay. And as we did the troubleshooting, it connected to my local server via SSH. It analyzed and parsed some of the logs, and it gave me recommendations on what it wanted to do to fix my problem. And after we finished everything, I said, all right, write a wiki for this. So if it happens again, I can just send Claude Code to this document and it will read that document, right? I'm getting ahead of myself, but I want to show you the benefit of having something like Obsidian, right? To be able to leverage the way you work, right? And a lot of people call this a mind map. There's other ways of doing this without Obsidian, but from my perspective, it's just a no-brainer to use it. And I could break things down within different folder structures or idea structures around the different work, like tech lead shift as a brand. It's going to have a brand package, decisions, and things like that. If I go back to, I think my no, I don't have anything in here. My oh, it's under here. Um, so I have logo assets for my travel company, the Earned Escape brand. I have some not I have some other things that I'm working on that right. So the website stuff, right? It's all here. Website development is all in here, right? So I store all that stuff in here, and you'll notice that there are also instruction sets in each of these different folders,
Hmm.
right? So the instruction sets are what we talked about on the UI. It's going to tell Claude how to behave when it's working on this specific task,
Right.
right? So when I'm working on Earned Escape, it's going to look through the instructions and say, okay, this is how I'm going to behave. If I go to a tech lead shift, you know, there's going to be another one. It's because I haven't worked on tech lead shift, but there's going to be other ones in here that will define how things go. And then there's the main one, right? The main context that it's always going to default to. So that's why I'm focusing on Obsidian, right? And why, as a new person starting out with Claude Code, it would be best to pair it with something like Obsidian, so that way all your context has a place to live. So when you finish the work that you're doing, it writes it out, and you don't have to regenerate that conversation, right? You say, "Hey, refer to this." Pick up where we left off. At work, I was working on deploying an on-call engineering app. And like anything, I got pulled into something totally different. And then a week later, I'm like, damn, I forgot what I did. I remembered I had Obsidian. I launched code and I said, hey, where did I leave off? And it read through everything that we were doing. And it said, oh, you left off here. This is where you have to go now. Right? Pick up from here and go blah, blah. It gave me the steps because as part of my discussion with Claude, I said, I need step by step because this is the first time I'm doing something in Azure Web App. So I need something step by step to be able to help me churn through this. And I said, yeah, you stopped at step 2, right? Pick up here, and this is where we left off, right?
I like how it's structured.
Yeah,
Uh, and also, like I said, well, earlier in our conversation, if at some point you can have this more conversational with the AI, where it can read back to you or it can speak to you. That'd be even better, in my opinion. That way you could just kind of listen. Okay, all right, let's pick up from where I've left off. Blah blah blah.
yeah. Now, Claude Code, I don't think you could speak to it yet. There may be a skill or something like that you could do it, but I'm not aware of that. But that's something that we can definitely look into. All right, so I'm on my terminal. I installed Claude. I did the prerequisites, everything, right? Yeah, I'm starting it in the folder that I know it trusts. Right, when you first start it up, it's going to ask you, do you trust this folder? Sometimes, and I actually show you. Let's just go to the C drive, right? And I launch Claude. It says, hey, by the way, you're starting in some place I don't know about. Do you want to trust this folder? I was like, oh, no, no, that's not where I want to go. So I hit 2 to exit. Right. So now I go back to my GitHub projects and I launch Claude, and boom, right? It's there. It is. There's Claude Code, right? You're ready to run. There are a couple of things that you should know. The models, you can define your models by just clicking /model.
Mhm.
Right. Right now, my default is Sonnet 4.6, but if I wanted to go to Opus 4.8, boom, it's here. When you hit the /, command, it has a bunch of different options for you that you can look at and you can play around with. BTW is as Claude is working on something maybe more complex. You can do /BTW and have another conversation with it.
Mhm.
You can have the Claude Chrome plugin. Right, I told you they can actually access Chrome for you, and I'll show you how it looks like when we get to that point. Um, and Clear is a good one, right? Clear is sometimes you're having long conversations, and at this point you're using Obsidian,
Mhm.
and you want to move on to something else. Clear the context so you're not churning through those tokens, right? And it'll start fresh. And let's say you already have something else that you want to work on that's in your vault. You say reference this or whatever, right? Clearing out starts with empty context. Um, blah blah. And there's a whole bunch of things that you could do here. Doctor is a good one because at work I was using my personal Claude account, and I had to switch to Foundry, and I screwed it up. So I used Doctor to help me. But Doctor is just checking the installation status. It's checking how things are running. It'll auto remediate things that may be broken in your thing, right? So Doctor is always something to good. So here we are. We're at Claude Code. If you don't know what Claude Code is, you say, "What are?" You could say, "I am new to Claude Code." Right. What are some things you can do? Right? And it'll just churn. Right now I'm using Opus. I forgot to switch back, but it'll churn through it. It'll take its time. It'll do what it needs to do, and it'll output everything that you need into the terminal so that you can read. Now here's where people get turned off by. They're like, "Oh man, I got to read everything through this terminal." Right? It's like, do I really want to do that?
I gotta read.
I got to read stuff, right? And that's why I said terminal's great for some things. VS Code is going to be better for what you actually want to do, right? But when you start off with any LLM, right, you just write this one line prompt. What are some of the things you do, and it could do what you do, right? So here's the terminal. I wanted to show you real quick. If you want to do something quick and dirty, going to the terminal is pretty good. But where you really want to live in, you really want to live in VS Code. And let me go to VS Code and show you what that looks like.
Yeah.
VS Code is, where the hell is VS Code? Oh, here it is. Sure. Okay. Okay. So you're seeing VS Code here. Again, this is not going to be a topic on how to install VS Code. There's plenty of information out there, but let's say you're already working in VS Code, you have it set up, you have it aligned to, again, the folder structure where Claude lives. I've already had VS Code because remember, I was building stuff already prior to Claude coming in, and it always lived in its GitHub project. So you can call it whatever, right? Documents, Rudy. It can just live in the Rudy folder. Doesn't matter, right? But VS Code is where most developers live, most people that work with Claude Code should be living because it allows you to work with the files and work with Claude Code at the same time. Right? As you can see here, before I talked about the desktop troubleshooting, it dumped everything out into here that needed to do as we were going along. My website development MD markdown file for earned escape, right? This is a project, a parent, right? This folder contains a strategy planning, right? This is stuff I work with Claude Code on. So now in VS Code, you just do a new terminal down at the bottom, move it to the directory that you want. I'm here and launch Claude. Okay, boom, simple, right? If you do model, you'll see it remembered I was an Opus. Yeah. It remembered I was an Opus because of the Claude.md file. Yeah. Claude.md file is your instruction set. We talked about instruction set on the web UI. Claude.md file is your instruction set. Let me switch back to the default, which is Sonnet port 6 for me. And now I can say things like, tell me where I left off on my earned escape website. Okay. Now it's gonna do some churning, right? It's gonna say, oh, let me check your memory files, let me check your project directory, let me see what we're doing, and let me see what's going on. One of the things that you'll learn as you start working through Claude, whether it be Claude Code or Claude Cowork, is there's going to be certain repetitive tasks that you do over and over and over again. And you'd be like, I wish this was easier for me to do without typing in so many things. That's where skills come in to play. Skills is a game changer in the way that you work with the model, right? Skills, think of skills as your own skill, right? You're knowledgeable on VMware, right? You know how to do certain things within the VMware. That's your VMware skill. There's things in EMC that you know how to do. That's your EMC skill, right? Someone junior that doesn't know how to do that, they're going to go to you and say, hey, Rudy, how do I do this thing in VMware? You're like, oh, you got to do this. And think of the skill like that, right? Your SME in that thing that you want to do over and over and over and over again, right? So skills are going to come here. I paused here because I want to show you something. As you go through some of these execution commands, it's going to ask you, it's like, hey, you really want me to do this? Can I do this? Yes or no? Right? And you go one for yes, and it'll continue churning through and reading things and updating things. Right now, it's checking through Git and seeing where the history is. Right? It's looking through my repository, the last updates, and here it is. It's like, oh, you left off with blah 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 blah. Right? Here's
Yeah.
your priority. Right? Um, Set up earned escape for the website itself, right? It just read through it. And if I go to usage, right? Oh, I typed in the wrong one. Escape breaks out of it. If I go to usage, right, you'll see that my current session, because I used this before we started, is about 50% used, right? A lot of it was because I was using Opus today.
Yeah.
All right. And the good thing with usage is it also show you the cost around that.
And that's interesting.
Yeah. So even in your if you decide to do this at work, this is going to be a good differentiator for you to determine how much you're actually costing the company money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And using the thing. So we had a conversation at work just the other day around the usage of Opus and Sonnet, because one of my guys who's really heavy in agents and things like that, he's like, oh, Opus 4.8 is out, blah blah blah. And I'm like, why are you using Opus so much? Like, why do you love it so much and things like that? And he was like, well, some of the complex things I'm doing. It's like, okay, but here's what I want you to understand. Just because we're working for a company doesn't mean that you have free reign to spend the company's money, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Especially for us in IT, in where, you know, when we spend money, we get questioned like every single nickel and dime. We get questioned,
Yeah.
right? No matter how well the company's doing, right? Billions and billions of dollars in profit. We don't make money for the company. We enable the company to make money, but we don't make money. So anyway, I say, think of it as your house, right? You're not going to spend $8,000 to replace, a toilet, right? You're going to want to know how much things are costing you. So I always tell the team to always look at and be mindful of how we're spending tokens. That's where the conversation around Obsidian came in. That's where conversation around token efficiency came in, right?
I figure at the end of the month, right? Well, from a business perspective, you're
Right.
going to get a report. You're going to
Yeah.
get a report that says, well, X and Y are, is using this much in terms of, yeah. So I could see that. I could see that big time,
Yeah.
especially if you're using it incorrectly, like you point out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I was showing the team my Opus usage, right? So this was before Opus 4.8 came out. I used it for about 2 hours, right? And it was like 4 million input tokens, and I think it was like 12 million output tokens. And I joked around and I said, here's how much I cost the company. It was like $13, right? I said, there goes my bonus, right? Because in the span of 2 hours, I used $13, right? But if you aggregate that over time, right, that $13 in 2 hours adds up, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the month, I could be like at $400,
Yep.
right? And somebody's gonna be knocking on my door, is like, what the hell are you doing, right?
Yep.
Because then you aggregate that across the entire team of 15 people, right?
Hmm.
And then you aggregate that across the entire department, right?
Yeah.
You see how quickly the usage increases. So be mindful of that, right? And that's why, especially for those that are new watching this and like they
Great.
still don't understand the concept of tokens and things like that, right? None of this stuff is free. Even though it's free, right? There's a free option. You're very limited in what you can do. That's why we talk about the $20 a month plan. And even the $20 a month plan is very, very generous. All right. If you've kept up with any of these things, Microsoft actually changed the billing model for GitHub Copilot, their LLM for GitHub. And I remember when I signed up for it 2 years ago, last year, it was $100 for the year, and you had a cap, right? But it was a very generous cap.
Hmm.
They removed that $100 a year plan, and now they're going based on consumption. So what
Uh,
you use is what you're going to pay for, plus anything premium they're going to give you a cap on, but you're still going to pay for anything over that,
yeah,
right? If you remember in the UI, we had an overage bucket,
yeah.
right? And we can define that overage bucket. It's
Mhm.
it's almost like that. So the model is changing in terms of how many organizations, how many companies are are charging you. So I suspect Claude's going to move that into a different model at some point. But right now it's $20 a month, right? Or if you're on the Pro Max plan, Max plan is $100 a month. But I suspect maybe by the time they go public, it'll be a lot more. So take advantage of this. And also the other reason why Obsidian is a good tool to use is I've been playing with Grok Build, and I just pointed Grok Build at my vault, and it just picked up where I left off.
Hmm.
Right. So being able to pivot to a different LLM because it's going to cost you more money to stay with Claude and go into somebody else, right? And I knew you guys bust my chops about this, but I signed up for all LLMs, frontier LLMs when they came out, right? So I'm spending probably $150 a month, right, on a bunch of different LLMs besides just spending $100 a month on Claude. And I do that because there's a lot of differences between them. So just be mindful of the tokens that you're using and things like that. So we talked about skills. Let me go to skills real quick. If I exit out of here, I go to skills.
AI, AI,
Ah, damn it. Did I lose you? I think I lost you. I think
or
I
using
lost you.
AI tools safely at the firm.
I lost you for a second because my internet's screwy. Say that
No,
again.
what I'm saying is the firm just sent out an email to discuss AI Innovation Week,
Oh.
and there's a prize for using Claude, and there's a 5 minute video, the do's and don'ts for using AI tools safely at the firm. uh,
That's awesome.
oh yeah.
That's awesome. So right now I don't have any skills in my Claude code that's aligned with what I want to show you. But what I can do is I can actually show you co-work. Let me share this co-work. So just so you can see what I'm talking about in terms of skills.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. There you go. All right. So co-work has the Claude Desktop has the option to put skills, right? There's an option for a skills creator, right? A skill for creating new skills and iteratively improving them, right? Decide what you want the skill to do and roughly how it should do it. Write a draft of the skill, create a few test prompts, and run Claude with access to the skill. Because I work on writing content a lot for corporate hardcore, I have a corporate hardcore skill. Remember, you talked about the tone and style, right?
Mhm.
Here's my description, and here's my write dash content skill. So every time I leverage that skill, or I say I want to write content for corporate hardcore, it references this skill. It will look at skills first
Mhm.
before doing anything else. Okay. If it doesn't find a skill, then it'll go out and do what it needs to do. So here you'll see, right, write social media content for Chuck across four distinctive brands, right? I have corporate hardcore, it's satirical, I have tech lead shift, it's leadership for challenging leadership frameworks, earned escape, my travel business, and then my personal brand, right? Executive cloud leader with strategic voice used for LinkedIn. Here's my brand voice. Going back to what you were talking about, right? Here's for corporate hardcore, what the brand is not, right? You want to make sure you have a not statement in some of these things.
Yeah.
Tech lead shift, right? Each one has their own voice and style that I want to focus on, right?
Mhm.
And that's what the skill is doing, right? The formatting for LinkedIn, I don't want it to be short, but I want it to be something that kind of has things. Uh, Twitter, 280 characters, right? I think you get the idea, right? It's like you're doing these things repetitively. You don't want to tell Claude every time, all right, don't use M dashes. Remember, we talked about the instructions, right? Don't use M dashes, things like that. The
Yeah.
skill is kind of that next layer for instructions to define, to tell Claude how to do things, right? So there's my right universal style rules. Don't use M dashes, right? Don't use things like great question, right? Right. Don't use buzzword heavy corporate speak. Right. Let's put a pin on that and things like that because that's what corporate hardcore is making fun of.
Yeah.
So that's right. That's what. And then here's the output format, things like that. My image prompt because I've been doing a lot of image prompting with Nano Banana and Kling for video prompts. There's ways of doing how to do how to structure the prompt, how I'm working with it, how Nano Banana expects prompts and to be more efficient and optimized. Right, it knows the difference. And I developed the skill as I was working with Claude Code. Right, asking the questions and things like that, taking into account what needs to be done. Um, so skills is another feature set within Claude Code that will enhance your usage across the files that you work with. All
Right.
right. Um, you can download Claude Desktop and use the Skills Creator here. Right. Again, for those that like to use the UI, or you could just in Claude say create a skill for anytime I I don't know I write a poem, right? It just again this is just something silly, right? And it's like I need a skill to write a poem, and it'll just say this stupid thing from Zoom. It's annoying. I know you can't see it, but it's just a markdown thing. So it says, hey, I'm going to write to the skills directory. I'm like, yep, keep writing it. It's going to keep going, and it should ask me some questions, right? Um, so we created the directory. It's empty, and it says, "Well, what do you want the skill to do?" Right? It's gonna want a style guide. It's gonna and then you can say, "Walk me through." Um, walk. Whoops. Walk me through the questions you need to help build that skill. Right? Again, treat it as your consultant. Treat it like you don't know what you're doing, but it knows what it's doing. So ask me some questions.
Right. Right.
Right? And then it goes, oh, here you go. Right. What slash do you want to use it? You want to write slash poem, slash poetry? And what's the purpose? What's your preferred poetic style? What's the subject matter? What's the output format? Right? It's going to go through that. You notice the difference here. In Claude UI, it'll ask you the question one by one for the most part. And it'll click on it, go ask the next question, click on it, ask the next question.
Yeah.
In Claude Code, right? Boom. It's right. It's all text based, right? So you have to read. So and what I'll do now is just clear. Just to continue going down this path of why Claude Code is going to be beneficial for you in the work that you do, right? If I go through, so I have a PowerShell folder here. I called it PowerShell Madness, right? A bunch of different things that I had that I was dealing with, right? So I'll say analyze the folder. And what I'll do here is this is why VS Code and Claude Code work well together because now I can just copy the path to that folder and do this for any scripts that can be optimized and made more efficient. Right. This is my standard text for any script that I'm working with that I haven't touched in years. Right. I have it just do this. Right. So now it's going into the folder. It's looking at those few PowerShell scripts. Right. And then it's going to start hopefully asking me questions on
Hey, by the
what
way,
it does. Yeah.
showing something. I'm not seeing it. I'm only seeing
Oh, sorry.
image prompt.
Thanks for
Uh,
telling me. Thanks for telling me. Share. Share. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So now you should see it.
yeah, there we go. Yep.
Yep. So I said, analyze the folder. What I did was I right clicked on the folder. This is what I was saying. VS Code and Terminal are great because then I could do copy path, and then I pasted the path here, and now it's reading that folder. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Now, one thing that you'll notice is that right now that folder lives in an area that Claude trusts. Remember when I first started it up in the terminal, it was in a folder that didn't trust. It says, hey, do you want me to trust this? And I said, no. You can still reference a folder outside of the trusted folder. It'll just ask you, hey, do you want me to trust this folder? And you can say yes. Right. So don't be afraid that, oh, it's limited to this specific folder. It's not.
Okay.
Right. Okay. It's going to it's just gonna say, hey, do you want me to trust this folder? So here goes script by script finding, right? It gives me a couple of things that, things that weren't defined, things that, it could fix, right? And things like that. And it'll give you a priority of things you want to work on. And if you say, do you want me to apply all? Yeah, sure. Yes. Please fix them all. And notice I'm just blindly doing this because I know these scripts are just junk and right, they're not touching anything.
Yeah.
But it's just showing for the purposes of what we're doing here is, it's going to output what some of the fixes are in your code. Right? It's not going to just blindly do it. It's going to say, hey, here's what you got to fix. And then if you have any more questions, right, if I do this, like, and right, so as that's going, right, you'll see that, right, it's fixing it, it's overwriting the files, it's telling you what's changed, right? So the red is the original one, the green is the change. It's just churning through it, right? And I'll say, yep, allow all edits, right? I hit number 2, allow all edits, and it's going through it. It's making the change that you do, and you'll see based on, right, the color changes in VS Code, which file it's actually touching. If this goes by too fast for you, right, you can see the changes that are happening as it's happening. Yeah. Right. So here it just, it got rid of that. It's adding this to it. And it's churning through it. Right. So now if I go to BTW, right, why is this a problem? And I paste that, right? It'll start answering that question while it's still churning in the background. You see it's still churning in the background here, right? The changes. So you're not just limited to waiting for this to go, right? You say, well, I want to understand why this is doing. Maybe I don't want you to touch that, but I don't know why you said that this is a problem, right? So it just goes boom. It'll update for you and things like that. And as I'm reading this, right, and trying to understand it, it finished everything else, right? It's done. Like it went through everything and it updated it. This was the same process I used to say, hey, fix my GitHub repository because I have things all over the place. There's some repositories missing that I don't have from my laptop in here, blah, blah. I did the same thing. I used Claude Code to fix my repository. You can do the same thing, right? With Claude Code. And just say, hey, I have something in here that I don't have much in here now at this point. But let's do this. I have this Docker Compose that I use for my self-hosted servers at home, right? I can say based on, right, oops. I can say based on the following file, and I'm going to use this Docker Compose file. Help me build an infrastructure to host a media server that will download movies so I can enjoy them I can enjoy them at home. Something stupid, right? So this Docker Compose, I pulled down from the internet and it has a bunch of different things on how to configure. Oh, I don't have anything in here. Oh, I don't have anything in here. Shit, that was the wrong file. But anyway, the point is, if I had information in here, it would just say, right. And look, it's asking me questions.
Right.
It's like, oh, what are you going to run? Well, I'm going to run it on Ubuntu or Debian, right? So I go here and I'm going to do torrents. I'm going to do both torrents and Usenet. I'm going to download everything through a VPN, right? I'm going to do it on a NAS server, right? And then submit answers, right? So now it's just going to go through churning that based on what it knows. What VPN provider I use Movad, right? Where is it mounted? It's going to be on two media, right? And then submit answers, right? So even from a file, and this file is empty actually, but I gave it just a file and what I wanted to do, it's churning to say, all right, I have enough knowledge kind of from my general knowledge base on what you want. Let me start asking you questions and let me start building something to help you along the way.
Hmm.
Right. And you see, it's thinking, it's churning through it. But my point being is Claude Code is your execution agent to answer questions or even help you improve certain scripts or documentation that you have already, right? That you don't even have to touch. It'll just write it for you, right? Um, oh, this is the Docker Compose file. Let me see. This was the one. Yeah. So if I copy this path, I go, actually, the correct file you can use for this infrastructure build is here. I go, boom, answers don't change. And then it'll say, all right, I got you. Let me read this Docker
File.
Compose file, right?
Yeah.
And let me build out what you have from here.
Yeah.
Right. And it's gonna, right. So we already answered the questions about VPN. We already answered the questions about OS server. But this is like reverse engineering how I got this Docker Compose file into what I need to build. Right. And hopefully if this works very well, it'll say, well, you need kind of this storage, you need this, right? And do you need help configuring things and things like that? Like I told you before, when I was having problems with my actually the media server that's hosting a lot of the stuff, right? I asked Claude Code to help me run through that, and right, it actually it couldn't SSH into the box into Proxmox, but it leveraged the web UI to actually pull API calls to pull information, the logs down, right? And here are the root causes: roaming aggressiveness, blah blah blah. Oh no, this is my desktop. Anyway, um, just pointing out that I can even use Claude Code to troubleshoot your desktop issues, right? So I had some problems. This is the wireless card that I had problems with on this desktop that I'm working on now. It's like, hey, I'm having problems with this wireless. It's not as fast as it used to be, things like that, right? So it did an analysis and said, hey, first of all, your driver's outdated, idiot. Update your driver, right? And then it said roaming aggressiveness, right? And here's what we applied. Here's what we did, right? So you can leverage Claude Code to troubleshoot problems that you're having with your desktop. Right? So it's things, and as I'm talking through that, it's going through, right. Here's your media stack environment, right, and it's copying certain things to different files. Um, Here you go, right. So here's a reference file, right. Prowler, modern successor, right. Sonar and lidar, jellyfin, right. Hard coded IPs for unpackers pointing to that. You want first order of operations, create the proxy, create the directory, fill the WireGuard project. Like it's going through everything that you want. And
Mm-hmm.
I continue iterating this, right? I say, well, how do I do this? Like, what is Jellyfin? Where do I download Jellyfin? What's radar and things like that. So you can actually continue working through this to be able to build something that you just have from, let's say, a config file. It's like, oh, I have this config file. How do I build the infrastructure around this? Right. Or here's my SOP. Right. Um, and I wish I had some of that stuff with me, but again, most of that stuff's at work. Here's an SOP. How do I make a disaster recovery plan around this SOP?
Yeah.
Right. And because you're working with the text itself, right, it can now write that file for you,
Yeah.
right? After asking questions. So the difference between the UI and Claude Code is, you upload the SOP to the UI, right? You're putting it on the Anthropic servers, right? It'll analyze it, it'll output it for you, then you download. Here, it's already in your file system. Boom, here's the files that you need to, here's like 3 SOPs you need to look at. How do I create a disaster recovery plan for it? Right? And it'll analyze those 3 SOPs and ask you some questions and output those files. So I know I said a lot and I went through a lot, but any questions so far around kind of the uses of Claude Code that maybe you can see useful for you?
Oh, actually, I do. I mean, it's a closer integration with my environment, so
Right.
that way it's even more powerful because it has more information it could use to formulate a response, which I've seen myself because when I'm like doing it from the web UI, it has a it doesn't create it doesn't assume it just I can only help you with the information you give me.
Right.
But if it's using the agent, it's like a tighter connection. Like, oh, okay, now I see what you're trying to say. This makes more sense. I could use it to, formulate a better, opinion or response, which is great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm gonna definitely see if I could try to integrate that in my daily use of it.
Yeah, and we didn't get much into Obsidian, and I think just giving you the concept around Obsidian and where things are stored, right? To better um, save on context, firstly, but also to build what people are calling that mind map, right? You'll hear
Yeah,
Obsidian being used like as a note taking tool and things like that. And it kind of is, but it really is a place for you to store a lot of those markdown files for use by Claude or even another LLM, right? Whether it be Codex, whether it be Grok Build, or whether it be whatever, right? Saving all the work that you've done in a central location that can be accessed by different LLMs will save you that that ability to pivot if you need to pivot to another LLM that may be more efficient at working on writing research papers, or
yeah.
maybe Grok is
Um,
better at doing virtualization stuff because it has the knowledge around Twitter and things like that. Like just as an example, right?
yeah,
So that's why I leverage Obsidian in there. And if you want to go deeper down that, we can have just a whole episode on around Obsidian, right?
yeah, that'd be great.
Um, but I think just getting Claude installed in the office, right? Having that trusted folder where you have documents, being able to understand the differences, in terms of how reading it. So Claude Code can read PDFs, it can read docx files, right? But it's more efficient to use them as a markdown file. So what you'll also find is when you get your environment set up, right? You'll have Python, you'll have Node.js, you'll have npm installed on your desktop, hopefully.
Yeah.
Um, you can actually tell it to say, hey, convert this docx into a markdown file, because you know that you're going to use less tokens with that markdown file. The docx conversion is just going to say, oh, I need a Python module to convert this document into markdown, right? So it's not doing it through Claude Code, right? It's just saying, all right, how can I do it? And it leverages Python to do it. But once it's in a markdown file, then you can feed it into Claude Code, right? So
Hmm.
again, going back and even for the web UI, right? Again, context is key in saving those tokens. You always want to use markdown files because it's going to use less token than doing PDF or things like that. So if anything, if you learn anything from this, convert everything to markdown file for use of Claude, because it's going to save on tokens, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Right.
Yeah,
So now I know we didn't get in much into kind of creating documents and things like that because I don't have much. Maybe I'll copy some stuff for next time. But we definitely start using VS Code, right, to get your things organized, because it's going to be a lot better for you than just using it in the terminal, right? Um, and yeah, I think take some time to install it. Just think through what you want to do. Think about maybe what the real first task is for you to do. Maybe continuing on this file permission things. I don't know, like maybe taking those logs or analysis or whatever you did and writing an SOP from those files,
Yeah, yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah,
You could do that.
no, for sure.
So yeah. Any questions? Like anything else?
No, not I can think of right now, but
Yeah.
but definitely this is another step that I can use in my tool belt to help me with my daily tasks. So yeah, that was very helpful.
Yeah, I think play around with it. As you and I are both busy, these sessions are getting more further out and further out. But let's shoot for next Friday again.
Cool.
To kind of talk through this. And I know this was a longer episode, but I think it was beneficial to see the various options that you have with Claude Code. And play around with it. Just play around with it. Play around with
Definitely.
it and see what you could do.
I
All right,
will
man.
definitely. Yeah, appreciate it, man.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you later.
I will talk to you. Peace out.
All right, thanks. And there you go. That was Claude Code with Rudy. I know I said a lot. I know I jumped around a lot, but the purpose was really just to give him an intro into Claude Code and the differences between the UI, the differences between CoWork. I did bring up Claude Desktop just to show the skills that I created in CoWork because I moved into CoWork for some of my automation work. But Claude Code still has a place. Again, don't get concerned about the code portion of it. That's just a product name that aligns more closely with developers. But you can certainly use it as a technician, as an IT professional, as somebody that maybe is just doing some marketing things or social media things. If you're more inclined to type, if your typing is fast, just like mine is, this may be the opportunity for you, right? You saw Rudy was talking about maybe just speaking to it because his way of processing information and talking is going to be a lot more efficient and faster than just typing it because maybe he doesn't type that fast. I don't know. Everybody's different. But if you find yourself typing because you type a lot for work or things like that, give Claude Code a try. Definitely look into it. There are reasons why the isolations exist, right? They're different tools for different workflows, right? You have the web projects. We talked about the web projects and the difference between web projects and the Claude Code, what I called projects, but essentially it's my folder structure, my file system structure, that how I organize my work. You may organize things differently. Claude Code will be able to act on those things, whereas Claude UI can't act on that. And we didn't even get into the Chrome thing because we're already an hour into the session, and people got to work. So there are a lot of differences between the usefulness, right? And excuse me, and we went off and said, hey, play around with it. If we have time next week, we'll go through it next week. But play around with it and see how it works for you. See what the benefit is. We had to move away from his work environment because it's getting dangerous for me to record, even in my work environment, let alone his. So, masking things just really going to take away from some of the things that we want to show you. But I hope this was beneficial for you. I hope maybe it inspires more questions and hopefully goes out and digging for more information. I'm always available if you want to reach out to me on Twitter. My website has a contact page now, the itxp.com. As a contact page, just pop it in there. Ask me a question. It'll come to me. If you want to hit me up on TikTok, same thing. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter as much, but I still get the email notification. But yeah, just ask away. Look for answers in various YouTube videos, and continue learning. Just keep playing around with it. Look, if you keep playing around with it, at least an hour a day, you'd be surprised where you are in 6 months. You'd be surprised where you are in a year. I've been doing this for 3 years now, and when I look back, I didn't realize it was 3 years. I didn't realize I was on Claude for 2 years. And I'm still, you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, you should just focus on one. And I kind of agree with that, but I think you should still have hands in some of the other ones because they do work a lot better. I actually am building my travel website with Grok build because I have access to it. And it's actually done really, really well. It's done really, really well. If I were to say Claude and Grok, I kind of lean towards Grok a little bit, just based on how I've experienced it, right? But we'll see. We'll see. I want to show you some of the integrations I did with Higfield AI. So I'm building those videos now. But continue learning, continue playing around with it. Ask me questions if you see fit. itxp.com has a contact page. Just use that or hit me up on any of the socials and I'll talk to you later.